If you turn your mic on. And it might even be on. I just-
But I think they can hear me. Hello.
Good morning.
Big audience. Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order.
We're not recording this.
Would everybody rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Roll call?
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Go through everything.
Councilmember Huang?
Here.
Councilmember Jacobowski?
Here.
Councilmember Talt?
Here.
Vice Mayor Udi?
Here.
Mayor Shepherd Rami?
Thank you. Posting special meeting agendas posted 24 hours prior to each special meeting at the following locations: City Hall, the Cole Public Library, and the Recreation Department. The special meeting agenda is also posted on the city's website. Do we have any public comments? The city welcomes input. Members of the public may address the city council by completing a comment card at this time. I see nobody here, so we will proceed to new business. The author, number 1, agenda item, authorization of the submittal of a comment letter regarding Senate Bill SB 50. Did you get a copy?
Yes. Oh, no. Pass it. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our director's comments.
That's okay.
Referral.
For the past couple of years, staff has been monitoring the progress of SB 50. Even after the legislature tabled the matter in May of last year, staff always understood that that was a temporary measure on the legislature's behalf. We always knew that the bill would be revised at some point. With the sudden push of the legislature to revive SB 50, the debate over the bill started as soon as the new year. At the moment, there is an urgency to streamline the bill through the process and obtain Senate approval by the end of next week. That way, if they are to receive approval by the Senate by next week, it does push the item to a deadline of August of this year to be approved by the Assembly. And of course, if all goes well per their initiative, it'll be a bill enacted January 1st of next year. As the opposition letter states, the bill includes a number of provisions that essentially upzone the single-family zones and allow for multi-family zone type development. Specifically, single-family zone property will be given the right to develop up to 4 single-family residential properties, or what we call a fourplex. The intent of the bill is to streamline the process for developers to construct high-density housing projects. If the bill is approved, it would significantly alter our long-standing single-family character of the city, eliminate the single-family zoning, increase parking and traffic, and impact the city's infrastructure. Because of these impacts, staff finds it critical to voice our opposition towards the bill. Staff recommends the City Council review the draft comment letter provided by staff and to provide comments and revisions. I have received comments and revisions so far, and we'll go ahead and implement those into the draft. Once the letter is final, staff presents the motion to authorize the mayor to sign the attached opposition letter opposing SB 50 and send the letter to Senator Portantino. I open for questions.
Councilmember, Holt.
I have no questions.
Councilmember Wong. Councilmember Jacobowski.
Yes, this probably isn't legal, but I'll ask if I can do it. Since I mentioned at our last meeting the Council of Governments, the 32, 28, 29 of them are in support, with what the League of Cities showed us this past weekend to be the poorly worded pieces of it being redone. Am I permitted to ask the mayor, having been with Senator Portantino, what his current feeling is in representing those cities that oppose, or am I not permitted to do that since they were together?
That's fine.
Okay.
Sure, I was just doing questions if you had any for either, and then we will have discussion, or I can ask if you want to ask.
Because I may ask him something as a result of what you say, if I can. Aldo.
Sure. Okay, I can update you. I met with Senator Portantino on Tuesday night, as well as his legislative aide, Tara. I'm sorry, I said to the car, but anyway, and he is obviously opposed to it, and he's working with other senators to do so. Up until Tuesday, or actually toward the end of last week, it was with him and the Appropriations Committee. It's been pulled out, and now it's at the Rulemaking Committee, which is being held up. So essentially now it's a matter of vote counting, is my understanding from him. And it's seriously going to be a 21, 22, either way vote of the senators in the various areas. The League, as you mentioned, is actively opposing it. As I have spoken with most of the mayors in San Gabriel Valley about this, they are also in opposition for a variety of reasons. Some have different concerns than ours, but many feel, as Director Cervantes pointed out, that the actual text of the amendments themselves don't cure fundamental problems with this. We have an additional concern, obviously, as we've spoken about, with the overarching impact of the bill and what it will mean for our specific community. But it applies to everybody who has single-family residential areas, and a lot of cities are already quite concerned about the possibility of adding 4 residential units throughout.
So going back, thank you, that leads me to my next question. Who do you know of who has, among sister cities in the area, has contacted Senator Portantino? Direct, besides letter.
Right, that's a great question, because I attended a city manager's meeting a week or 2 ago, and at that meeting, the League was there, and they had a small presentation about this item. And this goes along with the urgency of this item today, in that it was illustrated to us that no one has submitted opposition letters to Portantino at that point. And so because of that statement, it prompted us to want to draft this letter. And so I think that answers the question, is that even the League has not heard from cities in writing us the opposition.
I think, can I follow up on that? I think part of it was that many cities felt, and the language from the League itself was that we had until the 31st. But the fact that this was pulled out earlier, right, it has to go out of a committee to the floor of the Senate or to further legislative committee deliberations by the 31st. So I don't think the urgency was there yet, but I think that there are other cities throughout California and even in our area that are in the process of adopting those. But given that many of those mayors were at the League conference this last week, et cetera, they probably are in the same situation that we are. They might have a last meeting of the month where they are going to adopt this or not. So it's kind of too early to tell.
And really, the only city that's come out to oppose it is City Valley, of course, and I think we've all heard that as of yesterday.
And my understanding is there are also some Bay Area cities that have.
San Francisco is looking to oppose it as
So
well.
there will be a slew of letters.
That's where Wiener's sitting.
It is.
Yeah,
So,
there's going to
okay.
be quite a
I will
quite a
then take
number.
my next question to my colleagues, but thank you.
All right.
Well, I just have a follow-up on that same line. Do we know who's on the fence? Because perhaps
Not many.
our direction should be there as well. And so this letter should go to,
That was my thought. It might, because of the fact that it's changed from, we obviously should support Senator Portantino's efforts,
Right.
as well as we should direct it to the head of the Rules Committee, which is the pro tem, and I do not know, was just changed as of January, so I don't know her name. I mean, and he showed it to me and I walked by her picture, but I don't recall. But I mean, she's the Republican, actually, of all things, the Republican leader in the Senate. So, and as well as we should address people who are identified as possibly undecided.
right.
Mayor, if I
And
might.
I don't know, without speaking to the legislative
Well-
aid, who those people that we would target.
I would like to know that, because then I could send, and I plan on sending Portantino a separate one. And if it went to the governor, I'd do the same thing to them. But I'd like to know so that the way I have been attacking it, and this is great, and this is what he needs, is if you were, or when you were a local city councilman or a local mayor, and the state started telling you things that have traditionally been locally,
Right,
what would your response be?
right, and that's what the first
Yeah.
was meant to be, local control, but I agree. And so I would like to work with staff to also CC, if I have the council's approval, CC other people, other legislatures that will be involved in the project, once we adopt the letter.
Yeah.
And that's why those of
And I would
us.
need your help with that.
Yeah. Those of us who know him can at least call his office. We're probably not going to get him, but he will certainly remember our names and say, along with the letter, I think as many phone calls that can be made, it will only help. Because as I keep sharing with you, all of the other cities are trying to dissuade him. And there's 28 of them I can name that are trying to dissuade him.
Well, they could adopt their own local stuff.
Well, we can hope that there's 486 cities in the state of California, so I'm hoping the majority go on the side of protecting what single-family residential areas they have, because this will be a huge change for
Right.
all cities. And it also, fundamentally, I think, as Councilmember Talt is alluding to, it changes local control over planning, which is a fundamental thing that is aspect of city governance. It's always been left to the cities in large part. And this would radically alter that for the future. So that's a big concern, and I appreciate the effort. I had, and I must say, just to follow up, I'm sorry, I was out of town and then reading this, and so the changes that I had were so many, so I typed it out this morning so as to clarify. So some of the language is used and some is added, particularly the middle, I believe it's, the third section, because if a lawsuit should develop, I wanted, the third paragraph, because I wanted to sort of list out other potential areas that might be actionable, such as, the flaws with the amendments in the Senate bill themselves. So if we need to hang our hat, if somebody else files a brief, these might be other things that are fundamentally fatal. So that's why I listed these. Much of this is from the league, their drafts and sort of some of the things that they were doing, and I wanted to make sure that we were in concert with other cities, because I think the cities that will oppose it will be using that league letter. So the second paragraph is about the local control issue stated about our city. The third paragraph being other general fatal flaws with the legislation, and then again, the top and the bottom are summaries of our opposition. So, it's not, that's how I structured it. That's why it ended up having, I just printed it out so we had a common thing to speak about. So, are there any public comments? Seeing none, I'll bring this to further discussion by council members.
I say we do it, and I encourage everyone to write individually. I also would move, when we so move, to copy this on anybody we want, anybody at your discretion, in order to get this message to people or our senators who might be wavering.
And residents as well.
Residents as well, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree that you should get it to the Tribune and the Outlook as well, because they're not here, but I think it's important for the public to know.
All right. So can I have a motion to,
I will
move to authorize the mayor?
move to authorize the mayor to sign the letter as amended by what was introduced this morning. The opposing SB 50, and send a letter to Senator Portino, as well as any other within the discretion of the mayor, individuals who are deemed appropriate for receiving this letter as they make their determination on SB 50.
Thank you.
And also, do you want to include the league also?
And the lead, correct?
Yes, and the lead.
Thank you.
Second.
And Councilmember Wong seconds. All in favor, voice? Or do you want to call?
Voices, fine.
voice.
Voice? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
At this time, the city council will recess to closed session in the EOC to discuss item number 2 on the agenda, public employee performance evaluation for the city manager.
One more thing, I'm supposed to say, Sheen Neon Kwai Bush. Happy New Year.
Is that good?
Is
Mandarin. My son made the card, and you can tell.
the Chinese Club function tomorrow?
No, it's next week.
Next Saturday?
Yeah.
Is that-
Tomorrow is the library open house. No.
Oh,
And Sunday is East West.
yeah.